Okay, so welcome back to this series on the 12 foundations of Unitive Psychology. And we're going to be doing today, what we'll be doing is the first foundation. So this is the second foundation in this whole series, which I introduced with the talk last time called The Cosmology of the Soul. And in this one here, I'm going to recap a few of the ideas that we dealt with in the first talk in order to keep a linkage going between each of these 12 foundations and the very first talk that I gave. So I want to start with talking about the word psyche logos, more commonly called psychology. But I really want to look at these two words and ask ourselves, do they describe much of what's going on in the field of psychology, or have they evolved to a place where there's very little linkage between the name of the field and the actual practice of the field? And then we'll go from there to the first foundation, which I will read in a short period of time. So psyche is in fact the soul. That's what the word means in the Greek. It means the soul. And logos is defined in the dictionary as a unifying principle. And it's even mentioned as that logos, the final definition among many, is that it is the unifying presence of God in the gospel, especially the Gospel of John. So last time I spoke of the cosmology of the soul, and just thinking about the relationship between the presence of the soul, psyche, and the presence of the cosmos, logos, creates a sort of wonder. And I'm not claiming any etymological truth in what I'm about to say. I just think it's a nice way to remember it. If we change W-O-N-D-E-R to O-N-E-D-E-R, wonder, we get to something that I'm trying to awaken in this new psychology, because there really isn't healing without wonder, and wonder has been kind of exiled from the academizing of the field. And there were reasons for all of that, the persecution of Galileo and others by the religious establishment at that time. But it is high time now that we begin to look again at what do these words mean, and do they reflect a truth about what we're trying to accomplish when two people get together to examine the logos of the soul. Because the logos of the cosmic soul and the logos of the individual soul are the same logos. And I'll give you some different words for that than I used in the first talk. So wonder is a product of the awakening of the realization that the soul is a subset of the life of the cosmos, and of course, therefore, of the earth. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is a Buddhist description of it, and one of the ways in which it is translated by Nichiren Daishonin, and then later by Daisaku Ikeda, who is still alive, I believe, in Japan, is that Nam-myoho Renge Kyo means the soul of the universe and my soul is one soul. And in the Christian take on the matter, I am the vine and you are the branches, is a very similar statement from another culture. And in Hinduism, when the Atman and the Brahman become one. So in all the traditions, there is this sense of the soul's journeying into oneness. And the product of that journey all the way along and at its end is wonder. And with the loss of wonder, the efficacy of psyche logos is in fact diminished, except by those few people like Jung and others who take the risk of stepping out of the accepted form, which ultimately is a shrinkage of the idea of the soul, and going into what the soul really is. So the Jungian form of psychology is really a lesson for us all. So wonder seems to be, at least to me, what is missing in psychology as a whole. Wonder is what is misunderstood when we hear the word mysticism. People who don't know anything about mysticism, even that they've experienced it in childhood, if nowhere else in their lives, think of it as Ouija boards or tea leaves or tarot cards, and that's not it at all. Mysticism is wonder, and it's wonder that is felt when the soul awakens to its larger context, which I'm holding is the cosmos. So if I were to put it in the way that Nichiren Daishonin put it, cosmologos and psyche logos is one logos. They're one. And of course, that goes always for the earth. The feeling of oneness with the animals, oneness with the structures of reality themselves, is just the experience of what reality is, because we are one of those structures. I remember one of my teachers telling me that we're actually geological formations that have mobility. Our bones are the mineral base upon which we walk, as well as that which holds us up in it. We're constellations of cells walking around as geological formations. So people often drone on about psyche logos or cosmologos or geologos. They talk about them as cosmology, geology, biology. And again, those words really aren't ever, in my experience, and believe me, I do a lot of reading, I don't see anybody looking at them and saying, well, what does this actually mean? The logos of the planet, the logos of the cosmos, the logos of the living, the life forms, and the logos of the individual. And I've never even heard it in theology classes. I've never heard anyone say the theologos, the unifying nature of the presence of theos, which is God. I've never heard that. I don't think most people have, because the language, which does evolve, I'm not trying to say that it shouldn't evolve. It does, and its meanings and so forth evolve with it. But there are times, and this is one of them, our period in history is one of those times where we really have to start looking at what our descriptors are saying about reality itself, because there's a lot going on out there, and actually very little of it is good. And on all of it these traditions go on, these disciplines go on with little reference to the actual meaning of the words. And when this happens, there is a shrinkage. And that shrinkage reduces the wonder of cosmologos, geologos, biologos, anthropologos. The one unifying factor that holds us all together as one created order shrinks. And then what do we get? We get shrunken people who produce shrunken leaders. Wonder opens us up, and opening us up, wonder awakens more wonder. Because once we open to it, it opens us further, because now we're feeling it. We're actually feeling something beyond terms that have to do with controlling the function of the brain. Psychology is not brainology. It is not pharmacology. It is none of those. Psychology is the guidance of the soul. Now, it might use as adjunct therapies at times, and I'm not a fundamentalist about that or anything else. There are times where, you know, the medical establishment does have a role to play, but they're not central to it, and they've become central to it, to the point where they and the insurance industries are controlling it, and not for any lasting good, in my opinion. So once we've poisoned and raped the earth, the geologos, once we've ruined life's habitat and creatures, the biologos, once we've destroyed whole cultures and peoples, once we've isolated the anthropologos, the soul of man, is it any wonder that we need to produce unending mind numbers to blot out that truth that arises from reality? Is it any wonder, there's that word again, is it any wonder that we line up overnight to be the first to purchase the next digital fix and pretend that that fix or any other will kill the empty ache in our souls? Why can't our young survive on the junk prescription, junk, street junk, material junk, any junk? Why is it our kids are killing themselves as junkies? Well, again, we have to look at why is that particular form of drugs called junk? Why are they called junkies? Why aren't we all called junkies? We certainly have enough junk. Why aren't we all called junkies? So that we can take ownership of that which is killing our young. We positively crave wonder, and we don't name it. And I hope to God in this moment, anyone who hears this, that craving, that yearning, that longing in the soul is for wonder. We want to feel wonder. We want to feel our innocence. We want to feel our beauty. Instead, we buy junk. Unitive psychology is, among many other things, a psychology of wonder. It awakens the soul to its cosmological context. Healing is wonderful. It's wonderful. So here's the first of the 12 foundations, the one we're going to work with today. The universe, in its expansion or evolution, provides the ultimate context for all communities, cultures, and beings. The universe had no beginning. The eruption of space and time, of energy and matter, represents a finite and temporal fluctuation in an infinite and eternal consciousness. This consciousness has 4 sequential phases in the human known as Homo instinctus, the tribal, Homo affectus, the religious, Homo rationalis, the science and technological, the scientific and technological, and Homo spiritus, the unitive. The unitive. So let's break it down into its 3 constituent ideas, this first foundation. The first idea is the universe in its expansion or evolution provides the ultimate context for all communities, cultures, and beings. So, universal expansion and evolution, or growth in the macro phase, in the larger forces of the cosmos, and in the growth of the micro phase, the tiniest of unicellular animals and plants, indicate to us by simple observation, just by what we see in our own experience, simple observation, that nothing is dead. Nothing is truly inert. That everything exhibits motion, exhibits order, and exhibits the ability to self-replicate. In its macro phase, if we look at the Earth, the tectonic plates continue to drive one old plate of Earth underneath a younger emerging plate, and then boils into, again, is boiled down into the lava that comes out of volcanoes and in other ways. So there is this continual recreation of the surface of the planet and everything on it. So nothing in the cosmos is dead in the sense that it doesn't exhibit a kind of life of its own. Not all of it is biological life, but there is something there that is what I call the logos, or universal consciousness. Everything is sentient. Everything is sensitive. Everything has about it a certain motion and vivid relationship to everything else. There's something alive in it. So, and that's true of the cosmos, the Earth, and in the life community and culture. They all have an inner vitality. That's the word I was looking for. An inner vitality. An ability to grow. Everything grows. Everything. There are no exceptions to this. Even the dead of all stars and species live in the next generation of their own kind. And that's what a supernova is the death of a star that then explodes and lives again in the minerals produced in the new context of a second generation star. They're not dead. The second statement is, the universe had no beginning. The eruption of space-time and energy matter represents a finite and temporal fluctuation in an infinite and eternal consciousness. And we talked about that in the first talk, The Cosmology of the Soul. So Ken Wilber used to use a term called an OOPS universe, OOPS. And what he was doing there, he was, basically poking fun at scientific hubris that would present the no beginning idea as a private and personal insight understood by scientists alone. So we think to ourselves, the universe had no beginning, but in the beginning there was the Big Bang, but there was no beginning, and it just showed up. Well, it's not able to be understood within the context of the disciplines of science. They can't go there. It's not within their methodologies to take that final step and say that there is an intelligence, a love, a presence, a creativity that is present throughout the universe, the earth, life, and human culture. And that it, so the actual science can get to the place of something like 1,000th of a second after the Big Bang. They can get that far, but they can't say where the Big Bang itself came from. So they say that it simply emerged from nothing. Well, in fact, it's better understood as a Buddhist koan that jogs the mind out of its habitual puniness and into a larger context. So what's a koan? A koan in Buddhism would be something like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? Everybody's heard that one. And it's like a joke that's been told too many times. So what then is a cosmos that had no beginning, but in the beginning had... It's there in all the mythologies, that in the beginning, blah, 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 blah. So it's a koan. It's to jog the mind out of the idea that there is nothing beyond what can be determined by science, when in fact, another part of the soul has to open up in order to understand an eternal and infinite presence, an eternal and infinite consciousness, an eternal and infinite sacred darkness out of which the light was made manifest. So what is that context? It's been called many times the darkness of God. T.S. Eliot, St. John of the Cross, and a million others talk about the darkness as the darkness of God. It's not darkness in the sense of evil or anything like that. It is the profound unconscious. If we were to look at the universal unconscious as beginning with the emergence of light and matter at the Big Bang or fireball, then the dark universe is the profound unconscious of the mind of God. And again, as I said in the first talk, we can know that. We can know that because we are that. We are that. And of course, the darkness of God opens to the light of God, the sacred or implicate order, to use David Bohm's term, opening to the sacred explicate order, or Brahman fluctuating into Atman, Yahweh fluctuating into Yeshua. It's a koan. It's a koan. And it is not possible to understand things like E equals MC squared, or the beginning wasn't the beginning because there was no beginning. The universe just showed up, unless we can jog the mind out of the reasoning faculty that we're really stuck in, and go through go past it into the mind of the soul and the voice of the soul, which is the place from which all masters, all avatars speak from. They're speaking from the place that precedes the beginning, and their voice is the beginning of understanding. That's really what they are. And so the third idea is this consciousness has 4 sequential and coexistent phases in the human, known as Homo instinctus, the tribal, Homo affectus, the religious, Homo rationalis, the scientific and technological, and Homo spiritus, the unitive. And that's where we're going now. So while there is a sequence to our evolution in time and space, the anthropologos exhibits what Thich Nhat Hanh, Buddhist, Vietnamese Buddhist, calls interbeing. We evolve, but we inter-are, and are thus all of equal value to the whole anthropologos. The study of this is what is called anthropology. The cosmologos, the geologos, and the biologos, and the anthropologos are all one logos, evolving, complexifying, and express not only the universal light, but also the prior universal and sacred darkness. And in Jung, he even uses the word shadow as a function of the soul, as the function of the psyche. Recently, I saw a movie called The Wind River. I ask everyone who hears this to see it, especially Whitey, among whom I am, and then ask themselves this question: how long do we continue doing this? Why do we do it at all, other than to avoid the pain of the answer to that question? The evolution of anthropos does not require segregation. We know what we've done to Blackie and the red man, and we admit it, or rather, if we admit it, in our present slide toward fascism, that slide will end, and we will experience what I call regenesis as a great republic called the United States of America. A great beginning would be to expunge the 3/5 clause in the Constitution, not amend it. We've done that. Expunge it altogether. Let's admit our mistake and take ownership. So the evolution and interbeing of the anthropologos, we begin first with the first people. Homo instinctus, the tribal peoples, just as the instinctive cortex in the human brain, the brainstem, was the first to evolve, so too the first expression of the human culture was the instinctive, the tribal peoples. The tribal peoples had an inherent instinctual bond with the biosphere. They experienced a profound bonding with the biologos of their habitat. Their religions, rituals, their art, methods of healing, their diets, and their sense of the theologos, the sacred, was one with the 5 kingdoms of life which surrounded them. Like them, we all have brain stems, and like them, we all have instincts and instinctual bonds. But because we've listened to and empowered fools, we've broken our bond or covenant with the biologos and its creatures. It seems as though we're about to pay dearly for that breach. We must end our desecration and ruination of them and our habitat. We need to listen and not preach. We need to become seekers of their wisdom, which is our wisdom too, our instinctual wisdom. Homo affectus, the religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Taoism, Confucianism, and all the their many derivatives, like the human brain, express the wisdom of the second brain. The paleo-mammalian cortex, the old mammal brain, which we have in common with the other mammals, dogs, cats. That's why we make fools of ourselves with our pets. We do these things to play with our pets as well as our babies, because our babies too are little mammals. They all transcend and include within their teachings, these religions, the wisdom of native peoples, because they all arise and inter-are with them all. They seem to all boil down to opening the self and emptying it from its psychotoxins, its lies, and its denials. It might be called kenosis or sunyata, but it means the same and is eloquently captured in the way of the 12 steps, a way of opening, confession, and emptying. Homo rationalis, the scientific and technological human, is what we're now totally dominated by, including this very necessary attempt to get this word out using that same exact technology, but hopefully using it for with benign motivations as opposed to building nuclear warheads. Homo rationalis, science is able to measure and codify all the logic, the cosmologos, the geologos, the biologos, anthropologos, and to show us the wonder of the whole created order, the realm of light. But it has been a huge categorical error to apply its methodologies to the exclusion of the first two orders of anthropos. This mistake was to value reason over wonder, rather than to merge the two. We find ourselves threatening the planet with technologies of death, and we presently have two sociopaths, one in a Buddhist culture and the other in a Judeo-Christian culture, going past all instincts, going past all affects of love and concern and caring that come by being mammals. And they wind up chest pushing. I don't know what else to call it. Chest pushing one and then the other. F you. Oh yeah, F you, like adolescents in a schoolyard. They just keep pushing each other. They are both poorly programmed computers at this point, with the third cortex of the brain, cognition, completely alienated from their instincts and those feelings of tenderness and the brains that produce them. To support madness is to be mad. To vote for madness is to be mad. And so, our final piece in the closing of this talk, Homo spiritus, the unitive, the movement into a unitive understanding. One synonym for logos is spirit. If we are to survive, we must enter the unitive age, beginning with a unitive psycho/logos, a unitive psychologos, psyche-logos. Unitive psychology is a great prayer and a great hope. We will either begin again on this basis, or we will come to an end.